This meeting is being recorded. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for checking out this video here on Shows, Style, and Spirit. I'm Ebony, of course. I am speaking with my dear friend Shira. We've known each other for quite a long time. She was like my fitness trainer. Like she led class and I would go to the gym and she would work us ladies out. So I've known her a while and she is absolutely awesome. How are you, Shira?
I'm really good, Ebony. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for talking with me because, like we have shared with each other, we wanted to spread awareness about domestic violence. I hate like the stigma attached, like you said, and I just want women and men who have been abused to feel like, don't really waste time trying to blame yourself, but just deal with what happened so that they can ultimately, heal and move forward. So thanks again for sharing your story.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So please tell me, how did you meet, the person?
We'll call him the person online. And I'm a little older than you. And, online dating is such a great platform for a lot of reasons, but there's sometimes you just don't know the person. And even if you think you've got good instincts or whatever, you never know. 90% of the time, for whatever reason, you don't click, like different personalities. But I feel like there's a lot of people on there that just aren't ready to date, never mind being in a healthy relationship.
I totally agree. I've been on a ton of dating websites too.
Yeah.
And it's like, you feel like you get to meet, there's the quantity, there's like a huge number of people, but in terms of who like really wants a relationship, who's really honest, that's a totally different crapshoot. It's tough to figure out who
the good ones. And the thing, like to be in a relationship, going from somebody that you don't know, meeting in an inorganic way, like not at the grocery store or something like that, there's a lot of people out there, like I said, the best way to say it is that they're just, some of these people on the website, men and women, aren't ready to be fully whole for whatever reason. And that comes into play into dating and into a relationship. So it's not easy.
Okay, yeah. I love that.
It's fun, but it's not easy.
Yes. You said they are not ready to be whole. That's very interesting. I like that. So tell me, in the beginning, did it feel like a normal getting to know you, dating type of thing?
Yes, and it did, but it also moved very quickly. And looking back, that was because this person just wanted to just hold on and didn't want to let go. And after everything had happened, looking back, I realized that this person, that I had allowed myself to be manipulated, and I let him because, first of all, I did some stuff I didn't know about, but second of all, I let him because I was like, well, we're in love. This is okay. And he's got my back, so I should have his. But there were definitely a couple of red flags, not enough in the beginning. Not enough to be like, enough for me to give someone a chance. And the thing that I've learned through this experience is, one, we are not alone. Domestic violence, unfortunately, happens way too often. And two, generally, it's not a one-time thing. Like it builds up, and it's not to violence. It builds up to, there's these little things that happen, or these weird reactions or unhealthy reactions that the person has to a situation. And altogether, it's absolutely psycho. But individually, it's just, it's a little off. I wouldn't react that way, but you're a different person. You know what I mean?
Yes, interesting.
It gets, in terms of domestic violence, it gets progressively worse. And that's what you have to watch out for. Like somebody might get upset at something stupid, and you're like, that's kind of a weird reaction. And then the next time they get upset, they're upset for an hour and a half for some reason. And it's like, okay, And then it progresses to somebody was upset at you for days, and in my situation, and then it got violent.
Oh
So,
my.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think like from the outside in, I think outsiders, they think like, oh, like they should have known they were crazy because they did
Right.
X, Y, and Z. But you pointed out like individually, you may say, oh, well, that's just kind of an over the top reaction, but whatever,
Right.
with that one incident. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. Okay.
And very often these people know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care. They think they're right. They don't think, and they blame you as the victim. I mean, I could have been killed that night, and I just got lucky that I wasn't. I didn't. Had I fought back, it would have been a completely different situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so that's okay. I took care of it. And what I mean by that is I went to court and got a restraining order for life.
Yes. Very good. So, like, when did their behavior and treatment, and I know you pretty much touched on this, like individual incidents where you said, oh, over the top reaction, but when would you say their behavior and their treatment of you turned unhealthy?
We dated for we were actually engaged. We dated for about 5 months, and probably the second month in, he had been drinking, and he just reacted in such a visceral way about how much he cared for me. There was no consoling him. Like, I couldn't calm him down. His buddy, who he knew through me, couldn't calm him down. On the street crying, and this is, at the time, this person was 50 years old.
Wow.
And it was just, and I didn't realize it. He had been drinking without me knowing. Like, it wasn't like we were having happy hour or something like that. And this wasn't late at night. This was like probably 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He was absolutely hammered, and I had no idea. So he was sneaking alcohol.
Get out of here. Okay.
So
See, and that's
yeah.
That's what's so tricky about dating, period. Whether you meet them online or at the grocery store, like you said, you really don't know someone until you know someone,
Right. It takes a long time. It takes a long time.
It does.
And dating when you're older, it's like making friends when you're older. It's not that easy. And when you find a good one, I'm not letting you go, So, but yeah, like looking back now, that's just not my jam. I'm, just pretty chill. And looking back now, that should have been like, let's pump the brakes. Let's just chill out and get to know each other. And this is great. But very quickly, he was spending every night at my house. In court, he said that we had lived together. And I was like, I don't see you paying any of the rent, buddy. We don't live together. He just stayed there. We didn't live together. Stayed at my house. Yeah.
So now, as much as you're comfortable with sharing, because I know sometimes when something traumatic has happened, it may be difficult, for people to really talk about it, but whatever's comfortable for you. What happened like leading up to the violence and the actual violence that you experienced?
There was one night where we went out and came home, and again, alcohol was involved. I had a couple cocktails, but I really don't drink like that. And he had a lot more alcohol than I thought, because I just was like, oh, we're at a dinner party, no big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna try and keep this brief. And he had smoked marijuana, which I don't do. I mean, if you do, whatever, not a judgment, it's just not my jam. And I remember walking home, and he couldn't even stand up. And, this guy was bigger than me, wiry, whatever, but it's, all muscle. He couldn't stand up. And I was like, all right, man, it's 9:45. We're out late, time to go to bed. And he went to bed, almost asleep, and he wouldn't calm down, and he wouldn't go to sleep. And he came around my side of the bed. Like, I thought he was getting ready, and I was already in bed. And he was like, he's like, you have more money than me. You don't understand. You don't love me, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, none of it really made sense. I was like, look, I understand I'm not trying to paint myself in a better light, but I literally was like, ugh. I was like, dude, you're just upset right now. You've had a lot to drink. Let's just go to bed and we'll talk about it in the morning. So it was an insane conversation. And I was like, and he wouldn't calm down, and just trying to talk with him and all this stuff. And what it was that he was intimidated by, I own my own company. He does too. I'm more successful than him. I have my own place. He was living with his parents at the time. This person was 50 years old and I'm 50. Well, I was a little bit younger than 50 at the time. And then he just would not calm down. So finally I was like, you know what? And this is like 10 o'clock, a little after 10 o'clock now. I get dressed and I come downstairs, I turn the lights on, and I was like, you have to calm down or you have to leave. Like, I'll call you an Uber. We'll talk about it in the morning. No big deal. And this is when it started. Like, he started pushing me and he put his arms around my neck. And he's just like, why aren't you listening to me? Why aren't you listening to me? I'm like, I am listening to you, let's talk about this, but now is not the right time. And that's what set him up. And he just started pushing me. And I mean, I'm not a very strong person, but it really took a lot for me not to push back, because I knew if I pushed back, it would be on.
Fight.
Yeah, into a fight. I'm, like I said, I'm in my 40s. I'm now 50. I'm not fighting anybody,
Yeah.
And he was pushing. And this went on and he would not leave. And this went on for a good hour. And fine, I was able, and he took my phone, which is considered kidnapping. And then finally I was able to get my phone back, and I called my girlfriend who lived around the corner, and I said, I need help. She's like, come over. So it took me 20 minutes, and I decided, crazy. I was like, I gotta leave my dogs here. I can't grab them. I will come back for them. Because at this point I'm like, I don't know what he's gonna do. And Abby was like pushed me into the stairs, hands around my throat, like, you won't listen, la la la, that kind of stuff. And I'm sorry if this is triggering anybody. And it took me about 20 minutes to get out of because I live in an apartment, so I live on the second floor, out of my gate. I finally got free of him, because at this point he's like holding on to me and wouldn't let me go and just like shaking me around and stuff. And I ran down my street, and my friend lives a block away, and it took me another 20 minutes to get to her. She's sitting there with her gate to her apartment open. And he did it again. He caught up with me, grabbed me again, and pushed me against the wall and all this stuff. And I break free of him again. I just throw down, run to her gate. This is about midnight at this point. She slams the gate. He tries to climb over the gate, which is a good 10 feet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And we're like, okay. And so then he starts crazy dialing me, whatever. And this is late at night. I don't stay up it lasts until about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I told my friend what happened, and he just kept going on and on and on. And then my neighbor, who's a guy, he's like, well, let me go talk to him. And so my neighbor, a guy, went and talked to him, and he comes back and he's like, that guy's crazy. He's like, he would say, oh, I love her so much, but she's such a bitch for not, how could she do this to me? She doesn't understand. And I'm like, I'm going to be covered in bruises tomorrow, buddy. And so I ended up crashing. I ended up crashing at my girlfriend's house. We didn't sleep all night. I slept for an hour. She walked me back at 7 a.m. I thought he had gone, because I didn't answer his calls. Or I answered one call and I said, you got to stop. You got to go home, get an Uber. Don't talk to me. The next morning, I live in the French Quarter, so I have a balcony. He climbed my balcony and is banging on my bedroom door, my bedroom window. I let him in. Same thing. He wouldn't, and he's like, I left my wallet here. I'm like, sure you did. I was like, you can get it, but you need to go, and you're at a 10 and you need to be at a 5. And again, same thing. This is a couple hours later, started pushing me, holding on to me, choked me. He's like, you don't understand. I can't even remember what he said now, but it was like the physicality of it. And it's like, dude, there's no going back. Like, what do you do? And so I was like freaked out that whole day. And I was like, that's it. There's no going back.
Mhm.
There's a line that you do not cross. And so this was Saturday morning. So the next morning his mother called me. And his parents were great. I love them, but they let him get away with bloody murder. And she's like, can't you just chalk this up to a drunken night? And I said, no, that's not what this is. I said, drunk or not, if I stayed in this relationship, he would kill me.
Yeah.
Out in my mind, he would kill me. So I just was like, let's just break up, whatever. I'm not having any contact with you. This was Sunday. And then I found out he was already back online. He started telling really mean, like, gossip to my friends to hurt me, which is so juvenile, crazy stuff. So then that Tuesday, he climbed my balcony again. And I was like, I didn't have cameras or anything at this point. And I was like, so I went to the domestic violence area in the courthouse, and I talked to them. I talked with my friends, and I wrote something up. I said, I'm in imminent danger. I need a temporary restraining order. Okay. And they gave went and got it. They gave it to me for what happens in this particular situation. They gave it to me for 3 weeks. And then that's enough time to serve them. And then you go to court to try and get an extension. And within that 3 weeks, I don't know how it works in Michigan, but within that 3 weeks, whether this person is served or not, it's still valid. But he kept coming around in these 3 weeks. So he would come around, but late at night. So he would come around at like 11, and there's a restaurant 2 doors down from me, and I would get texts like, he's walking around, and I had no contact with him because legally you can't.
Oh, wow.
So then we went to court to get the restraining order. I didn't have an attorney, and he didn't have an attorney. And Ebony, you should have heard this guy. He lied about everything and made it seem like it was my fault and said that I was wrong. Oh yeah, it was all me. And and I brought 2 of my girlfriends saw it. So they came with me they were so nice.
Good.
They came with me. We had to wear masks because this was February 2020. And we're all sitting here like, none of that is true. Like, we couldn't talk. So it was like shaking our heads. We're like, no, that's not how any of that happened. Like, wow. He was telling me, he's like, I was mentally unstable. And one example that he gave is that I was upset about January 6th. And I was like, people tried to take over the government. Okay. That's pretty upsetting. And so I know, I'm so stupid. And I'm just looking at him like, this is actually how you think. And this is what you're saying to defend yourself. And, the only thing that I did wrong was not say, the first time when he was crying and for no reason in the middle of the afternoon, and then about how much he loved me, that I didn't cut it off right then. But even still, all the stuff that happened, this is not my fault. This is not me. I didn't do this. Right. Created the environment. I didn't fight back. Sometimes you do have to fight back. It's very situational. Yeah. And I was granted the 6-month restraining order. And then after the 6 months, what you could do is go back and apply for a lifetime restraining order, which is what I did, because in April, like I said, I go to bed early. Just to make this really quick, I wake up in the morning, it's like 7 in the morning, 6:30, whatever. And I have 2 texts from these girlfriends who work at the restaurant and the bar. One of them was there, one of them was working. Both of it individually said, whatever you do, don't go outside. This person is there. It's like 11:30 at night. Like, okay. And by then I had a camera on my balcony. So I'm sitting there and I talk with my girlfriends. I'm like, that's so weird. And then like, I get off the phone with them. This is 8:30 in the morning. I'm like, let me just check my camera, my pictures. Sure enough, 2 o'clock in the morning, he was up on my balcony came up to this, I have 2 balconies, came up to my 2nd floor balcony on my balcony, trying to get in, like you can see him opening the door.
Oh no.
So, and it's so, like that night, I made, for whatever reason, I made sure to lock my balcony door, because you know, who's gonna climb on the balcony? And this was 3 months later. So I called the police and I said, they came out right away, which doesn't always happen. They came out right away. I told them what happened. I showed them the pictures. They're like, you can't really identify him. I'm like, well, people saw him before. So what he did was he waited for my friends to leave, to climb on the balcony and try and get in my house. I was like, that's it. So I call, you know, when I was talking with the police, I said, look, I have a restraining order. Here it is. I'll email you the pictures. And the sergeant came out and I said, this, and this. I explained them what I'm talking about now. And the sergeant right away was like, cut a warrant. So there are 3 felonies pending against him. Felony trespassing, felony peeping Tom, which apparently is a thing. And then there's one other charge I can't remember. So in August of 2020, I went back into court and I said, I want this for life. And, you know, and showed them pictures. I wrote a report, you know, I documented everything. It was as factual as I could be. And this is where kind of being treated like a victim comes in. The judge, I showed her the pictures, judge signed off right away. And because the police couldn't go get him to arrest him, they arrested him right then and there in the court, which I had no idea how they were doing that. And he's since gotten out on bond. And like, for example, the court, once you get the paperwork, the court clerk comes and gives it to you. And she came and gave it to me while I was waiting to leave after he was arrested. She said, by the way, use the stairs because his son is trying to talk to you. And I saw the kid, he's like in his late 20s, walking down the hall, and I hightailed it through the stairs. And I have nothing to say to this family. You know, they allowed this. This is, you know, and this gentleman was married before, like he used it against me that I've never been married. I'm like, well, because there's a lot of people like you out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then they knew better, and you should support your family and whatever, but it's like, buddy, at some point you have to your family has to tell you, or your loved ones or your friends, like, you need help. Like, this is not a normal reaction.
Exactly.
So that's the worst night, but it was pretty violent, and it was really hard for me not to fight back because I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to defend my dogs. I had 2 dogs and 2 cats at the time, and I was afraid of what he would do to them, never mind me. And so, but there was, you know, a couple of hours before I could escape of him just like, just pushing me and in the show, you know, that kind of stuff. So it was pretty intense. But again, you know, I got to my girlfriend's house and I'm like, there's no going back. You did this. So, and then he, you know, to blame me. It's like, this wasn't. So that when I said earlier, I took care of it, that's what I meant. Like, I went through the judicial system. But even then, studies show if they want to find a way, they will. And I'm not a firearm person, but I know, you know, in having these conversations with people, I know women that have, you know, gotten a firearm and are trained in it and all that stuff. I do have a taser.
That's good.
Yeah, but I don't, other than that, I don't. Yeah. And he knows that. This is not, you know, news. Like, if you ever watch. So, and, you know, the craziest part was court was like,
the line.
I couldn't believe that that's what his perspective was. It was like, and again, you're lying under oath. Like, we're in court. Like, this is a big deal. And you're lying under oath to make yourself look better. Yeah. And if he had made a mistake, whatever, she still would have granted me the restraining order, I feel like, the judge. But it just was like, he just thought it was one bad night. I'm like, sweetie, I have a bad night and I don't sleep and I take a ZQL. Okay. That's my bad night.
Yeah.
Where I'm like stressed out on my television show. That's my bad night. My bad night is not shoving someone around for, for, 3 hours before this person can get away. So anyways.
He was probably so full of himself to where he thought he could manipulate the judge through the lies. Probably really thought
that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like he tried to make me seem like a bad person because of all the good attributes that I do have. Like, yeah, I'm upset. No, I've never been married. That doesn't make me a bad person.
Right.
You were in a 30-year abusive marriage. So, you know. But of course, he blamed it all on his ex-wife. And I was like,
of course. And his, his mom calling you, that's enabling. If enabling was a person, it would be the person's mother.
Yep.
I can't believe she called you to defend an adult man who, in my opinion, he was masking it behind the alcohol and the bad night.
Yeah.
But because he did some deliberate things, which I'm going to touch on, but just his mother actually calling and saying, can't you just chalk it up to a drunken night? Like, no, that's why he is the way that he is, because you make excuses.
Well, and part of it was he was living with them at the time. And then
or she may have wanted to get rid of him. She may have wanted you to take that problem on.
What they told me was they wanted him to be, happy and have his own space and whatever, but they would also keep him until he got that own space. So I think he took advantage of it. He probably didn't even know that he did, but he definitely took advantage of it.
Yeah. One thing that stood out for me was how deliberate he was. Like, although he was, drunk, so to speak, but when he's yelling at you and putting his hands on you and pushing you, he knew to try and take your phone. Like, I mean, why would you do that? Yeah, unless you're doing wrong and you don't want her to seek help, or you don't want her to document it. So then to take her phone. I don't like that. And then I have to commend you, Shira, because in the middle of crisis, you were able to get your phone back and call your girlfriend and then attempt to get to her and make the way there. Like that takes a lot of mental strength and a lot of focus in the middle of a crisis. So I think that's great. That's definitely important to acknowledge.
Well, and thank you. And I think that's normal because that was my reaction, but it's not. It's scary, and all you want to do is leave and not be there, and you're angry and hurt because this person is hurting you literally, physically, and you want to fight back because you're so angry at them. But I think, had I been in my 20s, I might have been like, F it, and just, fought back. But then also I knew that a line had been crossed, and I'm like, I'm not making this any worse. And I want to de-escalate this situation throughout the entire situation. And for example, like in court, he was like, I was just trying to calm her down or whatever. I'm like, calm me down. I wasn't. Literally, I'm looking at him like,
I didn't fight you.
Yeah, it was just like, his perspective was so skewed and so dangerous that it was like, again, it was my fault. So yeah, it was exactly. And he had the wherewithal to take the phone. Like, what am I going to do? Like, post it on Facebook? Oh, we had a bad night.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
But and again, I'm so glad that you have that mental strength. And this is because I'm definitely not judging anyone who's been in a violent relationship, but I'm just so glad that you have the mental strength to know when he's even trying to be manipulative and when he was trying to lie in court and trying to say it was your fault. Like, you knew you did nothing wrong. You did nothing to deserve to be violated that way. So that's so important.
And I'm lucky, it stopped at that point. And sometimes people say, some people would say, it was a bad night. No, this is pervasive behavior. It's severe or pervasive enough. And there is a line that's crossed that you cannot come back from, in my mind. And even if women or someone in my same position decided to stay, it's still not their fault.
Yes.
There's no behavior, there's no time that behavior should ever be condoned. And if you decide to stay, it's still not your fault, period. Yeah. And you know, some people say you were there for 3 or 4 years. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter. Yeah. They decided to get out then, and that's it. Yeah. So yeah, that's my whole thing. And I think that, you know, as we talked about earlier, there is a stigma, but I'm also, again, I've got the wherewithal to be like, I don't care. You can say whatever you want. I'm at the age where I'm like, listen, you can say whatever you want about me. It doesn't bother me. I mean, you know, if it's bad, crazy, hopefully it's true, which it's not, but it's like, cool. They're making me sound like a cooler person than I actually am. You know, it's just, I don't have that energy anymore to put that kind of drama into my life. And that was a change too, you know?
Yeah. Yes, you bring up the stigma right at the right time. My next question is, you know, so the world always says a woman, you know, puts herself in this type of situation, or, you know, she should have left. Why does she stay? And, you know, all these judgments, you know, what do you say to that?
I think people need to calm down and understand that whatever the reasons were, however it got to this point, there needs to be support, because these people this is a pretty traumatic event, whatever the level of violence, and supporting a person can only be a good thing. And people have become very, very judgy and be like, well, I would do this in this situation. No, you wouldn't. You don't know. In that situation, I would have thought I would have fought back, and I didn't. Yeah. People need to know that a lot of times you can just be supportive, and that is a lot of different things, and in a lot of different ways. But honestly, what I would say, if somebody, you know, gives me the once over, you got to stick to your guns, and you got to find that strength for somewhere and know that you're doing the right thing, even if some people don't agree with you, like friends or family member. Oh, he was so sweet. Yeah. And then behind closed doors, he threatened to kill me. You know what I mean? So, and we've all seen those movies where these people would be dancing and this woman just wants to get out, and the husband or soon to be husband, like whispers, you know, in the inference that he would kill her if she tried anything. And you're like, this is in front of everyone. Yeah. So there's a level of intimidation. And after I ended things, I found out that he had made some comments and that he was trying to isolate me. Like he just wanted it to be him and me, like no friends, no nothing. And I'm really lucky. I've got a couple of really good friends where we could say, hey, you want to go get a cup of coffee pretty much at any time of the day, obviously after work. But he didn't like that. And so that's a real red flag. You got to pay. The classic red flags are classic red flags for a reason. And for me, I would feel, you know, I don't want to be mean or whatever. No, I don't care if people think that I'm mean or not. Now, don't care, because I'm protective of myself. I'm protective of my family, of my friends. And that's the thing. Like, people are very fearful of being judged. And the only person that you should be worried about who's judging you is you. That's right. If you can't lay your head on the pillow at night going, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm happy, I did the best that I could, whatever that means. I mean, some days the best that you can is just breathing, you know? Yeah. And I think people forget that too. And, you know, your best is different in every different situation, you know? So, in terms of people being judgy of other people, calm down. That's my thing. Calm down, and then the person receiving the judgment, it's when people judge, it's generally not because of that person. It's because of their own ideas and the way that they think that it should be and whatever. And sometimes they're right, but in this particular situation, why did this person leave? For whatever reason they didn't, and it doesn't matter. This is where we are now. Support your friend, support your family member. support other women, support men that this happens to, because it's not going to get better, and don't accept that behavior. It's not going to get better until we all, as a society, understand that, I guess is the way to say that.
Absolutely. Support your friend. I love it. It's perfect. Okay, so now that we've talked about how others judge women, I want to talk about women pressuring themselves, or, being really hard on themselves for finding themselves in a violent situation. We've already talked about, dating is hard. You really don't know someone until you know them. But what do you say for women who may really put themselves down about what they've been through and about being violated?
For whatever reason, be it low self-esteem, I'm just using that as an example for how many bad relationships I contributed to and I put up with. For me, I guess I can't really talk about that. I can talk about what happened with me. When I got the permanent restraining order, this is going to sound so silly to say, but I literally walked out of that courtroom and I was like, I'm done. I'm done putting up with bull ass. I'm done putting up with stuff that isn't good for me. And I knew I needed to figure out what that meant. I'm like, I'm done. I am so done. And I was angry, and I was really angry. I was like, how did I get here? Like, I'm walking out of a courthouse, like, and I'm not an attorney. And I just was like, I was mad at myself for being there. And I understood that it was also okay to be there. And I also understood that it was okay to be really angry. Not at this situation, but kind of at myself, but not really. And then just angry. And I'd like to mention that, being angry is okay.
Absolutely.
I think people forget. And it's okay to be angry, and then, realize that emotion and feel it. And that's a really good example. Is like when you're angry, I don't know about anybody else, but when I'm angry, I'm like, I feel it. It's kind of like when you're like, you feel it, like physically you can feel it. And sadness, you just want to move through it. But when I'm angry, like, I can't back myself down. I cannot do anything crazy. I just like, fold my arms and tap my foot and go, I'm really angry, But I was so angry, and I moved. That was my shift. I was like, I'm done letting this happen, or feeling like I'm letting this happen, being manipulated, and if I'm manipulated, I like to see the best in people. If I'm being manipulated, I'm very comfortable going, no, I don't need to be friends with you. I don't need to talk with you. I don't need to, no. And I don't need to give you an explanation.
Isn't that freedom? Doesn't that feel so freeing?
It's awesome. It's awesome. I don't need to explain myself. I don't need to do anything. I did something that night. I saw someone who's a friend of mine then, and I don't know why. It was just, I just wanted this person to know that I was angry. And we had dated before, and that's how we started dating again. We're still together now.
Oh, that's funny.
So it was nice because he let me express myself, even though I couldn't explain why I was so angry. But I literally walked out of that courthouse and I was like, I'm done. I can't, whatever decisions I made, whatever this situation was not my fault, but I will make damn sure I am not going to get into that situation again. And so it's, and like we were talking about earlier, being a little bit older, it's very freeing where you don't have to depend on what other people say. Go, and I used to be like, oh, I really don't want you to feel bad about me. I mean, I get that that's your opinion. And younger, I would be like, oh, how do I make you like me? And now I'm like, I don't care. Don't care. And I had some friends tell me like, oh, this person was saying something and I defended you. I'm like, I didn't ask you to. Also, I know this person and they didn't say that. And 3, if they did, whatever, I don't care. It's, there are some people, in the French Quarter is a very small neighborhood. And so, a lot of people know a lot of people, and like, I don't know everyone because there's a couple thousand people that live in this small area, but I know some people think I'm a jerk, and I'm like, Good for you. Have a nice day. You're welcome to whatever your opinion is from your bar stool that you've been at since 10 a.m. No problem. You know, I mean, but go ahead. I don't care.
I was just gonna say, just to piggyback off of what you've been saying, I think generally women, like we start off being girls, being little, and I think like generally we're kind of raised to be like sweet little girls, and you're raised to kind of like be domestic and be like this caring person for others. So you learn at a very young age, to start putting yourself on the back burner. Like you go to the back and everyone else goes to the front. And then, you know, you're raised to like be sweet and be mannerable and not be rude, you know. So sometimes speaking up for yourself or not putting up with the bull S is like being rude. Like it gets confusing, a little skewed. And then like you have to get older and realize, well, no, I'm just not gonna I'm gonna love me and do what's best for me, and that's just it.
Yeah, putting yourself first is number one. And you know who I learned that from? Michelle Obama. I love her. I will never forget this. There's one of the first interviews after he was elected, and with Barbara Walters, and she's like, you know, how do you do it? And she was flat out, no pausing, no nothing. She's like, I put myself first, and I don't feel bad about it at all. And she said, because if I don't, then I'm not good for anybody else. And I was like,
that's awesome. You don't hear women say that.
Yeah, and it's so interesting too, because we're kind of stuck in this. We're supposed to be domestic and be happy about it, but we're supposed to have jobs and we're supposed to be independent. So, and we're like the second generation out of feminism, and we're supposed to want to do, you know, this, or this. And when we want to have it all, or it's just too much pressure, or it's a good thing or it's not, or, you know, only this is Instagram worthy, but they don't see, you know, the pot that's over boiling with pasta, you know, stuff like that. So it's a balance, but it's also, you know, learning to put yourself first and to understanding that, you know, other people are going through their things, and very often it has nothing to do with you. So put yourself first, period. And I'm to the point now where if I don't put myself first and get a good night's sleep, then I'm not good to anyone. So that's putting myself first. Thank you very much.
I love this. This has so many jewels in this interview. This is great. Okay, so after the experience with the person, did your perspective on humans change, or perspective on men? Okay. So you didn't let it like color your world at all.
I knew exactly what this was. And I knew like my perspective of the human race and people in general, I think kind of shifted a little bit through the shutdown and through COVID, but not like, oh, all men are bad or anything like that. No. And I mean, I was like, I came out of that thinking, besides being angry, like I'm not going to date for a long time, because I was kind of looking forward to having that freedom again. And, you know, now being in a healthy relationship where it's great. He's downstairs making dinner.
Oh, very nice.
it's very freeing, and it's very much like I can be myself. How crazy that is, or how like, I'm sorry, at 7:30 I want to go to sleep kind of stuff, you know? So it's important, and it takes a while too, you know, to get to know yourself. And especially in this day and age, it's hard. It's hard. Worth it.
So now for days where, like, if you ever feel a little bit of the trauma or anything, you know, what are some of your coping routines? Like, I know you love to work out. You live a very active life. Like, do you say affirmations or do yoga or journal? What are some things you do?
I do, yes, I journal, but not for that reason. And I understood that there were going to be triggers, and I understood that it probably, hoping that it wouldn't be that dramatic, but like he drove a white van for work. So now every time I see a white van, I'm just like, I look a little longer,
Yeah.
but I don't. And I'm just like, ugh, that I have to look a little longer. I'm much more aware of my surroundings. I don't stay out late anyways, but that's one of the reasons. It's just, I'm to the point where nothing good happens after 10. But if I am triggered, it's never any more to the point where I have an anxiety attack. It is, I can handle it because the coping mechanisms are, anything. First of all, therapy. If it was something really traumatic, absolutely therapy, and talk your way through it, but also understand it's going to get weird, and that's all okay. There's no time frame for healing, and you are going to get triggered. And what happens is, like any severe emotion, it's still there, but it gets a little bit less powerful. And then the next time it gets a little bit less powerful. And so, again, now when I see, white vans, I'm like oogling to make sure. But then that's it. And then I just roll my eyes that I feel like I have to do that. But in the beginning, it was very much day by day, and realizing how crazy that was. And then, definitely I did go to a little bit of therapy. But I made sure, again, took care of myself, ate well, slept well, spent time with friends and family, spent time understanding that this is going to take a minute and it is going to be weird, and that's okay. But I knew, like, again, I'm not going to feel like this ever again, ever. So what I would say to that, Ebony, is do all the things that people say to do, but take care of yourself. For like, sleep well, eat well, focus on what's important to you, work, hobbies, all that good stuff. And just really be gentle and take care of yourself. That's it. And then, if you need help, don't be afraid to ask. And you're going to have bad days. And there are going to be triggers, but they get less and less.
Okay. Is there anything else, anything more you'd like to add?
Yes. I mean, if this happens to anybody else, I hate to say it this way, when it does, be around people that are supportive of you. Understand that not everybody is on your side, especially in the legal system. I would recommend, if you don't want to get hurt anymore, if you're done, go to the wall and fix it, and go through the judicial system. If you have to go to extremes, one of the police officers told me to move. I'm like, I'm not moving. No. But sometimes it does get to that, and use the resources that are out there, like the domestic violence hotline, and resources in every city, county, parish, state. Use them. That is what they're there for. That's why they have the funding. And a lot of these people, for example, the assistant district attorney that's working with me, I said, I know you guys deal with this all the time, and I don't understand this process. And can you explain it to me? And she was great. She was really, really helpful about explaining it to me. But again, just realize you're going to have to pick yourself up some days, and it's going to suck, but you're going to do it because you have to. The alternative is, misery and not being safe, and your family not being safe. So just do the best that you can. That's it. And like I said earlier, that's different every day.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. This was amazing. And I feel like anyone watching this, they will feel empowered, whether they've gone through the situation or not. You are just so wonderful, Shira. Thank you so much for speaking with everyone.
I love that you're doing this, because there needs to be conversations about this, not just how messed up this situation was, but what we can do to make it better. And for men too, how to communicate for men, and how to make them understand that having more than two emotions, being happy or angry, is real and okay, and all that stuff. So yeah,
Awesome. Well, everyone, please share this video. Let's, spread awareness as much as we can. And as always, take good care of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.